What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Wildcat Dash here on Dash Sports TV. My name is Jacob Mennuti. I'm joined once again with my co-host Ryan Wohl. Ryan, how are we doing on this Friday afternoon?
Doing great. Can't wait to get into some Wildcat football.
Awesome. Well, we do have a lot to talk about today, so let's not waste any time. It's been a very wild and confusing offseason for the Arizona Wildcats. We've seen a ton of players decide to enter the transfer portal and leave the program. We've also seen some players decide to opt out for the upcoming season, whether that be because the players didn't feel the conditions were safe enough or maybe just because they had some other personal reasons. And Arizona has been on the bad side of a lot of that news recently, but Wildcat fans may have something to finally smile about because this past week, Arizona had two players decide to return to the team. Starting offensive lineman Donovan Laie has decided to return to Arizona and play for the Wildcats next season. And this story was a really weird one. He tweeted out that he was entering the transfer portal, and then a few hours later, he deleted the tweet. And then the very next day, he came out and said that he's going to stay. So it wouldn't be Arizona athletics without a little bit of drama, of course. And we also saw Kevin Doyle decide to opt back into the season. He had initially decided to opt out of the season because he felt the conditions were not safe enough. So with all that being said, Ryan, what do you kind of make of both of these, and what do you kind of make of both of these guys coming back, and which ones do you feel is the more important player to have back for Arizona?
The more important player coming back is Donovan Laie, as he started all 24 games in his past 2 years at Arizona, and he really is going to be that main blindside protector of quarterback Grant Gunnell this year. And he's a big part of that offense, trying to start Gunnell's career and see if he's that next level quarterback. And yeah, the situation was just very weird. How I just never seen something like that. He came out, he's transferring, now he's back in. It's just like it just brings it back to, it seems like the whole situation with the program is just like all up in the air, and just all these guys transferring, moving in and out. It's very weird.
Yeah, I have to agree. I think the fact that Donovan Laie is coming back for Arizona is huge, right? I mean, like you mentioned, the Wildcats lost a ton of talent on the defensive side of the ball. I think their only hope this upcoming season was that the returning talent on the other side of the ball was going to be enough for them to win some games. So that offensive line in particular could potentially be one of the bright spots for the Wildcats with all those returning players. So the fact that Laie is going to be there this season to kind of lead that offensive line is just huge. I mean, because he's the best lineman on the team, right? Like I think like Donovan Laie has some legit NFL talent. Like he's never missed a game for Arizona in his 2 years there. He started all 24 games. So like if you were to make a list of all of Arizona's offensive linemen and you ordered them based on which ones you wouldn't want to see leave, I think Donovan Laie is like the first name on there.
Yeah, I agree. That's what I've been hearing from everyone that I've read and looked at. He's a very important piece, and when I saw that, I was very concerned for Gunnell's season. And on the other side, Kevin Doyle. I mean, he's a talented guy. He hasn't got much playing time here, so there hasn't been much opportunity to see him. But I'm not that concerned with the backup quarterback spot on this team.
I don't know. I was actually just going to talk about Kevin Doyle because I think him opting back into the season is actually a bigger deal than we might actually think. Because, I mean, sure, we already know Gunnell is going to be the clear-cut starter, right? Like he's going to be in every game if he's healthy. But after that, I think the rest of the depth chart is pretty up for grabs, right, behind Gunnell. So I guess we could assume that Rhett Rod seems to be like the number 2 guy if Gunnell were to go down, just because he has the experience and he knows the playbook the best. But if we're being honest, I don't really see Rhett Rod being that guy for Arizona in the next year or two. So like we all know what kind of player Rhett Rod is at this point, right? I mean, we don't know what kind of player Kevin Doyle is, and we wouldn't have known for another year if he were to opt out. So to have him back with the team to kind of get some more chances to get some more reps in at QB, I think it's a pretty big deal actually, because I don't know. I mean, like obviously we all want to see Gunnell play, right? But Arizona might find themselves in a situation where they're down 30 and it's the start of the fourth quarter, and we're throwing the towel in. I mean, if we put the backups in or whatever. And one of those guys that I would like to see get some time and get some reps in this year is Kevin Doyle, just because we don't know how good he might be. We haven't seen him play yet. So I don't know. I think him coming back to the team is actually a bigger deal than what we might think.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm also intrigued to see if he can get some playing time, maybe in situations like that. But in the grand scheme of things, is he's probably, if everything goes right with Grant Gunnell, it'd be best for the team if we didn't see much of Kevin Doyle in the future.
I mean, he's only a redshirt sophomore, so I mean, you want to look past the years ahead of Gunnell. I mean, assume that Gunnell is the guy and he's going to be, an NFL prospect in the next year or two. Like, that depth chart behind him needs to kind of have some sort of order. And, Red Rod's going to be gone by the time Gunnell is gone. So, you have Kevin Doyle there, Will Plummer, Clay Millen's going to get some reps in. So it's like all these guys are kind of just all in the same kind of general area of, like, we don't know how good they can be. So they're all kind of on the same level right now. That's why I think Kevin Doyle coming in right now and hopefully getting some reps this season is probably the best for the team. It's best for himself as well.
Yeah, I mean, the way the years add up is if Gunnell if he plays this year and he plays well and only in the short season, then next year and goes on to the draft, hopefully, then yeah, maybe in that senior season we'll see Doyle shine and in that main role. But yeah, the quarterback group for the future looks pretty bright. With they have got a lot of good guys I want to see in the coming years.
Well, the college football season has not started yet for the Pac-12. So although we aren't able to watch the current Arizona Wildcats play football, we can, however, watch some of the former Arizona Wildcats play football. We saw a couple of ex-Wildcats play this past week, but one former player in particular stood out to us in week 3, so much so that he is now the team's new starting quarterback. Nick Foles was named to the Chicago Bears starting quarterback this past week by head coach Matt Nagy. After Foles' performance where he came into the game in that second half and led the team to a comeback win. He scored 20 points in the fourth quarter. He overcame that 16-point deficit in the final 6 minutes of the game. So with that win, the Bears are now 3-0, which may seem like kind of a weird time to kind of change quarterbacks with your team being undefeated so far in the regular season. So, I mean, what do you think about this, Ryan? Are the Bears making the right move here by starting Foles for the foreseeable future?
Yeah, 100% they are. My guy, former Philadelphia Eagle Nick Foles, Super Bowl MVP, is the right guy to always throw into the fire, and he will get the job done. He has the experience, as we know, in the playoffs and in big games. And yeah, I think with Nick Foles, I think the Bears are a playoff team, and I think he could lead them in very good places down the road.
Yeah, that QB situation in Chicago certainly felt like it was one of those when things more than it was if, right? I think Foles being named starter was only a matter of time, right? I think I only got to briefly watch that game against the Falcons, but it really did seem like one of those situations where it was like, you're watching Trubisky play and it's like, oh my God, the Bears offense sucks again. Like, where's Nick Foles? When is he going to come into the game? Like, because like Trubisky was overthrowing his receivers left and right in the first half. I saw that highlight of him overthrowing that ball to Anthony Miller at the end of the half. That would have been a touchdown if Trubisky made that throw. So I think the game was certainly starting to head in that direction of a potential quarterback change being made. But I do think the timing for me was a little bit weird, naming him the full-time starter. I mean, with the team being 3-0, I think it would have been more expected to see, okay, Foles just came into this game and saved us. We're going to still go with Trubisky just because Trubisky won us the first 2 games. And I don't think Trubisky has been playing terrible this season. I mean, I don't watch a lot of Bears football, so I could be completely wrong on that. But just based on this team is winning games, I don't think that Trubisky is really holding them back right now. So I don't know. I guess to kind of come out so early into the season and say that, Nick Foles is our full-time starter, it was a little bit weird for me to see.
Yeah, I've watched some games, and it's just the same old Trubisky. Besides here and there, he spurs together some drives, but in the grand scheme of things, is like we know that this was bound to happen. And normally, it's weird. We don't see a lot of times when a team is 2-0 and they just switch up their quarterback like mid game. But at some point you gotta put the right guy in, and Nick is that guy. I mean, like what he showed, that like maybe as a starter he's not the best, but if you need a guy and you're down a few points, like to together a few drives, Nick Foles is that guy. And I think he's a top half starter in the league when he's healthy.
Yeah, I definitely think Nick Foles is a good quarterback. Like, I mean, we have to remember that this dude was the highest paid free agent last season, 2 seasons ago in 2019. He was the highest paid free agent 2 seasons ago in 2019. And, he got that gigantic contract in the offseason. So, I mean, maybe this is a good thing for the Bears because, Foles did not live up to the hype with the Jaguars, right? Like, I know injuries basically plagued his only season there. But, I mean, after he signed that mega deal, I think all eyes were on Nick Foles to kind of be that guy and be that savior for Jacksonville. So I think maybe Nick Foles coming in could potentially be a really good thing for the Bears, just because I think Nick Foles still has something to prove. And who knows? Maybe that QB change could be enough for the Bears to kind of get over that hump and into the playoffs.
Yeah, Nick Foles always excels in those moments when he's like the underdog and he has to prove another person, team, or anyone else wrong. That's what he's great at. So I do think he was worth that money because he's been underpaid for a lot of years, and winning a Super Bowl is something not a lot of people have did, let alone a backup quarterback at the time.
So where do you kind of see this team now with the Bears, with Nick Foles as their starting quarterback? Because the Bears always kind of seem to me as like that 7-9, 8-8, 9-7. Like they're always kind of middle of the pack. So do you think that this move of putting Nick Foles in at quarterback is enough to propel them into the playoffs? Because I kind of see them right on the bubble right now. But, is this one of those moves where we can potentially see Nick Foles propel the Chicago Bears into the playoffs?
Yes, if Nick Foles stays healthy, like they just lost Tariq Cohen, one of their best offensive players, but he just showed in a brief stint where if he's healthy for the next rest of the season, next 14 games I really do think that this is a 9-win football team at the very least, and he can prove to show that they're better than that, 10 or more games. Their defense is still very solid, and they just always been missing that quarterback throughout the past 5 years.
I don't know. I think for me, I don't know. You said that the Bears defense is good, but I mean they've looked a little sketchy the first couple weeks of the season. Like they've been giving up a lot of points. Like I don't know if that's something that the Bears should be concerned about, but I don't think Nick Foles is kind of like the team's Lord and Savior, right? Like, but I definitely see it being an upgrade over Trubisky, just because I don't know. I think that game against the Falcons was 2019 all over again for the Bears. Like Trubisky was just throwing away passes left and right. Like I think a change needed to be made for sure. So I don't know. I don't really see Nick Foles as being the guy that's going to put them into the playoffs, but it's certainly an upgrade in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I disagree. I think Nick Foles is that guy, and I think in the playoffs, if he's there with an average, above average team, I think he takes that team to the next level, and I think he's going to do it again this year with the Bears. I mean, there's not more than 10 quarterbacks, if that I'd rather have to be under center for my football team in a playoff situation.
I mean, yeah, I mean that's not a horrible take. I mean, we've seen what Nick Foles can do in the playoffs, but I mean, so you think Nick Foles is top 10? Is that what you said?
Yeah, he's only 31 years old. He's not that old. He's still the real thing has just been he's got hurt here and there, and it's just if he can prove that he's the guy, I think the Bears should give him an extension, and just make him their. I think he just needs that. He needs that support, and he needs the talent around him too. And I think he's that guy.
I think where I see Nick Foles as being is I don't ever see him being a starter for your team, right? Nick Foles is, and we've talked about this before. I think Nick Foles always thrives in that role of kind of being the number 2 guy, and then when things get rough, he steps in and he makes the move. Like if they were to kind of move on from Trubisky and name Foles the starter, I'm not like 100% sure that that's the best thing for Nick Foles, because he's always thrived in that role of being the number 2 guy and kind of just waiting for the opportunity to kind of help this team when he needs it. So, I mean, like the rumors about Nick Foles is that he's not a very good practice player. Like he's never practiced well. So like maybe that's why he's just never good enough to kind of beat out the starting role ever. Or, I don't know, but he just always thrives as kind of that number 2 guy. So I don't know if that's the right move for the Bears to kind of just, cut Trubisky loose and then just, start with Nick Foles and have Nick Foles be the future. But I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, yeah, I mean, he's not the flashiest type of player, so he's not going to always stand out in practices. But like next year, I would like to see the Bears to just give him the keys to the offense at the beginning of a season. And if he's like, because to me, he hasn't besides last season with the Jags, he was the starter for one game, and then he came back midseason for another game, and then the thing with Gardner picked up. Like I still don't believe he's been given that full like chance when he's healthy to be the main quarterback. And because I think, like I said, he's 31 years old. Like there's guys like Brady, Breeze. I mean, he's not on that like level all time, but like they're 10 years older. Like I still think he has a lot to prove in this league and a lot that he can give to an NFL franchise.
Yeah, I actually agree. I don't think it's fair for anyone to kind of say that he was a bust or a failure at Jacksonville. I mean, like you say, he got hurt in like, what was it, like the first or second quarter of that game, his very first game there. And then, the Jaguars, what they're doing. They cut Fournette loose. I mean, who knows what they're doing at Jacksonville. So, like, you can't really blame him for being in that system and being with Jacksonville, because I don't think he was given a fair opportunity at all. So, I mean, who knows? We actually have never seen Nick Foles kind of be the number 1 guy. I think he was for Philly, but that was when Carson Wentz got hurt. So I mean, like if Chicago gives him the keys to the Porsche, I mean, who knows? I mean, I don't know, but it could go either way. I would feel more comfortable if I had Nick Foles on my team. I would feel more comfortable with having a young starting quarterback who still has a little bit of potential, like Mitchell Trubisky, and then kind of, okay, if Trubisky isn't working out for us, why don't we move him to number 2 and we can move Foles in. Just to kind of repair things. But I don't think I would ever, give him the keys to the Porsche.
Yeah, I mean, at the very least, I mean, he's the best backup in the NFL. It's not even close to me. I mean, if that's primarily his role. But the whole Mitchell Trubisky experiment seems like it's coming to an end real fast here. I mean, like he just doesn't seem like the guy they drafted, and obviously he's nothing near like the guy in Patrick Mahomes who they drafted over 10 picks later.
I mean, guys develop at their own pace, so like I don't know if it's fair to really say that Trubisky's a bust yet. I mean, we've seen flashes of him, but we've also seen like the worst Mitchell Trubisky. Like we've seen the best of Trubisky and the worst of Trubisky. So I think having that safety right now, I don't think it's really time for Chicago to move on from Trubisky yet, just because I think Nick Foles is still a great safety option. But, I don't know. We could see Trubisky break out, but I do agree. It's always nice to have Nick Foles as the backup.
Yeah, I mean, when you got like, it's just, yeah, it's a hard situation because teams in like that we've seen, like the Titans, the Bucks, like they let go of their number 1, number 2 overall picks like in the last 5 years. Like eventually you just got to move. You got to move forward and see what's best for the franchise at that particular moment. And right now, it's Trubisky's just not the right guy for the job.
Well, why don't we move on to our final topic, which involves the Pac-12. We discussed this on our show last week that it didn't seem like the Pac-12 was making an effort to expand the college playoffs or the college football playoffs, and for a Pac-12 team to potentially sneak into the playoffs. But, apparently they did make an effort because it was reported earlier this week that the NCAA commissioners had denied the Pac-12's request to expand the college football playoffs to 8 teams for the upcoming season. So I'll start with you here, Ryan. Were you surprised at all to kind of see the NCAA just shoot down the conference's request for a college football playoff expansion?
No, I wasn't surprised at all because there's been talks for years that like everyone wants like more teams in the playoffs, more teams in the running. But the thing that I did find a little weird was the attempt by Larry Scott with the Pac-12, because like we talked about in the past, is like it didn't seem like he was pushing for that hard and doing everything in his power to make like for there to be able to be a team from the Pac-12 in the playoffs, because how he made such a short season, and there's not that many weeks, and just all the factors, it just doesn't add up. So this is just something else that just is mind-boggling to me and just doesn't make sense, and is the reason why hopefully Larry Scott won't be here in the next year.
I was certainly surprised to hear that news come out, because I remember, I mean, like, this had to have happened in like, the last like week or two, right? Because I remember at the webinar, somebody asked him about a potential expansion. He kind of gave us a whatever answer about it. Like, if that was something that they were talking about weeks ago, I would have expected Larry Scott to be front and center about it and just be like, oh yeah, we're trying our hardest, even if they're not. Like, even just lie to us and say, oh yeah, we're trying our hardest. But he didn't even say that. So like, I don't really know if that was something that Larry Scott was even trying to do up until about a week or two ago. So like, I was surprised to hear the news come out, and I certainly wasn't surprised to hear the NCAA just shoot it down so fast. But I don't understand at all why we're not trying to do this. Like an 18 playoffs would benefit every conference, just because, all their teams would have a better chance at getting in the college football playoffs. Like, I mean, for what I've read, I think to get the approval of the expansion, you would need, I think it was 10 FBS teams plus Notre Dame to approve that for the expansion to happen. Like, why is Notre Dame like not in favor of this expansion? Like, they're not in the Power 5 conference, so their strength of schedule is always a grind for them to get into the college football playoffs. Like why? So I don't understand why they're not on board with this idea. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Like, we've seen the 4-team format. Just, in my opinion, I don't think it's the best option. We've seen it not work out. Like, every year there are teams that get snubbed. Like, every year we see it. There's always more than 4 good teams in the college football. So like I remember that year. I think it was 2017 with Ohio State. Like, Ohio State finished 5th, like, because they lost to Iowa or whatever. And sure, that was a bad loss, but like, that team was loaded in 2017. Like, they definitely deserved an opportunity to compete for the national championship. Like, I remember, I think that 2017 team had, if I'm not mistaken, had JT Barrett, Joe Burrow, Dwayne Haskins, and Tate Martell. Like obviously those three, like, all those guys outside of Barrett were all babies at the time. So like, they weren't necessarily the players they are now, but like, that still blows my mind that QB room consisted of those 4 dudes. But like, they also had Chase Young and Jeff Okuda. Like, that team was stacked. So like, the fact that they got snubbed, and I think Wisconsin had a good year.
Yeah, I think the year before that, I think in 2016, if I believe, Penn State was I think ranked number 5, and a lot of people thought they should have got in. That's when they beat Wisconsin in the Big Ten championship when they had Saquon and Trace McSorley and a lot of talented NFL players. And yeah, that it's just been an outlasting problem through the last 5 years, 6 years since this started. And getting back to what you said a little earlier is, like, I think this is actually an attempt for Larry Scott to fool everybody and just make it seem that him and the Pac-12, they're trying to make that push, but and just to make himself look better, actually, just because of all the hate that he's been getting. And I mean, I think deep down he knows. I mean, and I've read that this isn't going to last too long for him.
Yeah, I definitely think it was kind of a little bit of a ploy, because I feel like we said earlier, like, if this was something that was on their minds from like day one, I think at that webinar they would have been front and center about it, about like, oh yeah, we're trying our best, we really want an 18 playoff. But like, I don't remember the exact quote that Larry Scott gave us, but he was just like, oh yeah, that's not really something that we're talking about right now. Or I think he said, like, that's not something that the league is considering right now. Like, that's all you're gonna give us? Like, tell us that we've been trying really hard. So like, I don't believe that like this is something that they've been working on for the past like 2 or 3 months, right? I think this is something that just came up, like in the last week or two, and it was kind of just a last ditch effort to kind of just be like, oh yeah, we're trying our best. Like, here, can we expand the playoffs? Oh no, we can't. Oh well. Like, that's kind of what I felt like I was getting at. Like, I don't know. And just getting back to, like, I want to keep preaching how cool an 18 playoff would be. Like, I think, remember that year with UCF that they went undefeated and everybody wanted to see them in the college football playoffs. Like that would have been so fun. That was the same year in 2017 with Ohio State. So like there were so many good teams that year. Like I don't know why we can't have an 18 playoff. Like that would be so much fun, and it would get so much traction from the league to expand the playoffs. Like it would bring in so much viewerships. Like having an 18 bracket. Where the 1 seed plays the 8 and the 2 plays the 7 and 3 plays the 6 and so on. Like make these playoffs the bowl games, and it would put more meaning on these bowl games if they were playing in that playoff format. Like I don't know. It to me, I don't know. Like I think maybe a lot of people are a little taken back by it just because it's like, oh well, they're playing extra games. Like what if these dudes get hurt? But like the college football season is like 12 games, so you add, I don't know what is it going to be like in an 18 playoff? That would be like I think 3 or 4 extra games. That's about what the NFL plays. So like it's less than an NFL if you count the playoffs. So like I don't think that's an issue either about like maybe this is too many games for them to get injured. Like I don't know. Like I really don't see any potential negatives with having an 18 playoff format. Like I don't know.
Yeah. I've always agreed that I think that at least one team from all the Power 5 conferences should be in the playoffs, just because we know, like, we've seen with, like, Texas, the game, like, last week, Texas Tech, and the overtime, like all these games, like Mississippi State upsetting LSU even at their home in LSU. Like upsets happen all the time, especially in college sports and college football. And it would just make it so much more exciting because you truly don't know what's going to happen in college football, and it would just raise the stakes even higher. Because when you only beat, like, now it's like if Alabama or like Georgia, if they like basically like schools like that, like if they basically go undefeated or like lose one game, they're in. But like if they do that, then it would add up to beating better competition from other conferences.
Yeah, it's literally just a win-win for everybody. Like we could do the top 8 teams, or you can do what you just mentioned, where each winner from the Power 5 conference, whoever is the champion automatically gets a playoff bid, and then those 3 teams can be from whoever is the top 10, whoever didn't win their conference but still in that top 3, then you can give them the final spots. Like there's just so many options here. Like I don't know, I don't see any, like I'm gonna say it again, like I don't see any negatives with having an 18 playoff. Like it would just be so fun. It would bring in so much viewership, and it would give so many teams a lot more credit, because when you have four teams, like there's no room for error. Like I don't know. I know we talked about LSU being a 1-loss team. They probably still have an advantage over like a 7-0 Pac-12 team, but their chances now that they've lost that one game have just almost diminished. Like they're at such a disadvantage now, and LSU is still one of the top teams in the league. Like we want to see them in the college football playoffs. So like maybe allow them a little more room for error for these teams, so we can see the best teams play each other. Like I don't see any negatives with it.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, even 8, I would like to see 12, or just like any more would be better. So you got to start somewhere. I mean, just not right. Like I know basketball and football are different, but like from 64 to 4, it's just like, I know it's like a lot, like you can play a lot more games, but like it just doesn't add up with just so few teams getting a shot at the title every year.
Yeah, well, 4 games is certainly not enough. That's where we're going to end things. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in and watching. A reminder that we're always here every Friday at 4 p.m. So tune in every single week for that. We also have columns now as part of our collaboration with Sports Pac-12. So you can check them out over on sportspac12.com, where our man Ryan Wohl will be writing columns following our weekly shows, recapping our shows.
I have a new one dropping tomorrow morning on my guy Nick Foles.
Yeah, so please tune in for that. You can check that out over on their website, and give us a look on our website as well over at www.dashsports.tv, where we post all of our clips and all of our full shows. So if you weren't able to get the live show, you can come in and watch the highlights of it's a win-win. So you can go ahead and also check us out on social media as well over on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, where we also post all of our videos. So there's no excuse why you can't be watching our clips. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll see you all next week.